Among the 83,000 people packed into Wembley Stadium, one voice stood out. Not because it was louder. Not because it was perfect. But because it carried something that cut through the roar of the crowd like a knife through silence. Michael Jackson was mid-performance, moving across the stage with the precision and power that had made him a legend, when he heard it. A voice. Singing his lyrics. Every word. Every note. But something was different. He stopped. The music didn't. The dancers didn't. But Michael Jackson froze. His head turned slowly toward the sea of faces searching. And then he saw him. A young man in the third row, sunglasses on, hands reaching toward the stage, singing with his whole soul. Singing to someone he had never seen. Singing to Michael Jackson. A man he could only imagine. What Michael Jackson did next would stop the show, break protocol, and create a moment that 83,000 people would never forget. If you want to know how this moment unfolded and why it became one of the most legendary acts in music history, stay with us. This story is just beginning. 3 hours earlier, the stadium was still filling. Daniel Moore stood outside Gate 7, gripping his ticket like it was made of gold. He was 24 years old. He had been blind since birth. And tonight, he was going to experience Michael Jackson live for the first time. His sister, Emma, stood beside him, describing everything she saw. The lights. The banners. The energy crackling in the air. But Daniel didn't need her to describe the feeling. He could feel it in his chest. The anticipation. The electricity. This wasn't just a concert. This was a pilgrimage. You ready? Emma asked, squeezing his hand. Daniel smiled. I've been ready my whole life. Inside the stadium, the atmosphere was building like a storm about to break. Fans screamed. Cameras flashed. The stage sat in darkness, waiting. Daniel and Emma found their seats in the third row, close enough to feel the bass in their bones when the music started. Emma leaned close to Daniel's ear. We're so close. You could almost reach out and touch the stage. Daniel laughed. I don't need to touch it. I just need to hear him. And then the lights went out. The crowd erupted. The opening notes of Jam exploded through the speakers, and Michael Jackson appeared in a burst of light and smoke. The stadium shook. Emma grabbed Daniel's arm, shouting the description into his ear, but Daniel was already gone. Lost in the music. Lost in the moment. But what was about to happen would pull Michael Jackson out of his carefully choreographed world and into something raw, unscripted, and unforgettable. The show moved like a machine. Every step, every spin, every note was rehearsed to perfection. Michael Jackson was a master of control, a conductor of emotion. He moved through Smooth Criminal, Billie Jean, and Black or White, with the kind of precision that seemed superhuman. But during Man in the Mirror, something shifted. Michael Jackson slowed down. The song was always emotional for him, but tonight it felt heavier. The lyrics hit different. He walked to the edge of the stage, scanning the crowd. And that's when he heard it again. That voice. Clearer now. Closer. He looked down. Third row. A young man with sunglasses. Singing. Not shouting. Singing. Every word. Perfect pitch. Eyes closed behind the dark lenses. Hands raised. Not waving. Just open. Like he was offering something. Michael Jackson stopped singing. The backup track continued, but his microphone went silent. The dancers noticed first, exchanging quick glances. Then the band. Then the crowd. A wave of confusion rippled through Wembley. Michael Jackson stood completely still, staring at Daniel. Emma noticed Michael Jackson looking and froze. Daniel, she whispered urgently. He's looking at you. Who? Michael. Michael Jackson is looking right at you. Daniel's voice faltered for just a second, then continued. He didn't stop singing. Because he didn't know. He couldn't see the man he idolized standing 10 feet away, watching him with an expression that no one in that stadium had ever seen before. And then Michael Jackson did something that shattered every rule of stadium performance. He handed his microphone to a backup dancer without a word. He walked to the edge of the stage. Security moved toward him instinctively, but he waved them off. The music was still playing, but the show had stopped. 83,000 people held their breath. Michael Jackson knelt at the edge of the stage and reached his hand out toward Daniel. Emma gasped. Daniel. Oh my God, Daniel, he's reaching for you. What? Michael Jackson. He's reaching his hand out to you. Daniel's face went white. His hands were shaking. What do I do? Reach back. Emma said, tears already streaming down her face. Reach back. Daniel lifted his hand, trembling, unsure. And then he felt it. Warm. Firm. Real. Michael Jackson's hand closed around his. The stadium exploded. Not in screams. In something deeper. A collective gasp that turned into a roar that turned into something that sounded like the whole world crying at once. Michael Jackson didn't let go. He held Daniel's hand and pulled him gently forward, guiding him toward the stage steps. Security started to move again, but Michael Jackson looked at them with an expression that said everything. Not now. Not here. This moment is sacred. Subscribe now because what happens next will redefine everything you thought you knew about Michael Jackson. Emma helped Daniel up the steps, and suddenly he was on stage. The stage he had dreamed about. The stage he had never seen. But now he was standing on it. Michael Jackson took both of Daniel's hands and guided him to center stage. The music had faded to almost nothing. Just a soft hum of synthesizers. The crowd was so quiet you could hear people crying. Michael Jackson leaned close to Daniel's ear and whispered something. No one else heard it. Not the microphones. Not the cameras. Just Daniel. Daniel nodded. Tears were pouring down his face now, soaking into his sunglasses. Michael Jackson took his own microphone and placed it gently in Daniel's hand. Then he stepped back. The stadium was silent. 83,000 people waiting. Daniel lifted the microphone to his lips. His voice cracked at first, but then it steadied. And he sang. I'm starting with the man in the mirror. His voice filled the stadium. Raw. Unpolished. But so full of emotion that it didn't matter. Michael Jackson stood behind him, hands on Daniel's shoulders, singing softly along with him. Not performing. Just being there. Anchoring him. The crowd didn't scream. They sang. All of them. 83,000 voices joining Daniel's. A chorus of strangers united by a moment so pure it felt like the whole world had stopped turning just to listen. When the verse ended, Michael Jackson gently took the microphone back. He wrapped his arms around Daniel in a hug that lasted longer than any scripted moment ever could. The cameras captured it. The whole world would see it. But in that moment, it wasn't for the cameras. It was just two people. Two souls connecting in a way that transcended sight, sound, and fame. But this moment wasn't just about that night. It was about to become something that would define Michael Jackson's legacy forever. Michael Jackson walked Daniel back to the edge of the stage, but before he let him go, he did something no one expected. He took off his black fedora, the one he had worn in countless performances, the one that had become as iconic as his moonwalk, and he placed it on Daniel's head. The crowd lost it. Screaming. Sobbing. Cameras flashing like lightning. Michael Jackson leaned in one more time and whispered something else. This time, Emma was close enough to hear. You see more than most people ever will. Daniel nodded, unable to speak. Michael Jackson guided him back down the steps, and the show continued. But everyone knew. Nothing after that moment would ever feel the same. The rest of the concert passed in a blur. Michael Jackson performed with the same precision, the same power, but there was something different in his eyes. Something softer. Something human. After the show, backstage, Michael Jackson asked his team to find Daniel. They brought him and Emmett to the dressing room. Michael Jackson was sitting alone, still in his stage clothes, the makeup running slightly from sweat. He stood when they entered. I wanted to give you something," Michael Jackson said quietly. He handed Daniel a small box. Inside was a gold record. Not a replica. An actual gold record from Man in the Mirror. "This is yours now," Michael Jackson said. "Because tonight you reminded me why I do this. Not for the stages. Not for the lights. For moments like that. For people like you." Daniel held the record like it was made of glass. "I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything," Michael Jackson said. "You already said everything when you sang." They talked for 20 minutes. About music. About life. About dreams. And when it was time to leave, Michael Jackson hugged Daniel one more time. "Keep singing," he whispered. "The world needs your voice. Share this story if you believe music can change everything. Subscribe if you want to see more moments that prove legends are made not by what they achieve, but by how they make others feel." The video of that night went viral before viral was even a word. News outlets around the world picked it up. People cried watching it. Not because it was sad. Because it was real. Because in a world full of performances, Michael Jackson had stopped performing and just been human. Daniel kept the fedora. He kept the gold record. But more than that, he kept the memory of that moment. The moment when the man he had idolized his entire life saw him. Really saw him. Not his blindness. Not his limitations. Just him. Years later, after Michael Jackson passed away, Daniel was interviewed. They asked him what he remembered most about that night. He smiled. "People always ask me what it was like to meet Michael Jackson. But that's not what happened. I didn't meet Michael Jackson the performer. I met Michael Jackson the person. And he was more beautiful than anything I could have ever imagined." The interviewer leaned forward. "Did he say anything else to you? Anything the cameras didn't catch?" Daniel's smile widened, but his eyes grew distant, lost in the memory. "He told me something backstage. He said, 'Daniel, I've performed for presidents, for royalty, for millions of people. But tonight you taught me something I had forgotten. You reminded me that music isn't about being seen. It's about being felt. And you feel everything.'" Daniel paused, his voice cracking slightly. Then he said something I'll never forget. He told me, "I've spent my whole life trying to make people see me. But you made me realize that the people who truly matter don't need to see you to understand you. They just need to feel you." The fedora still sits in Daniel's home, carefully preserved in a glass case. Next to it, the gold record. And beside that, a handwritten note from Michael Jackson, delivered to Daniel's home 3 weeks after that concert. It simply reads, "To Daniel, the man who sees with his heart. Keep singing. The world is listening. MJ." Daniel framed that note. He's never sold it. Never will. Because it's not just a note. It's a reminder. A reminder that the greatest performances aren't always the ones that are planned. They're the ones that happen when someone stops trying to be perfect and just decides to be present. Michael Jackson built his legacy on stages around the world. But that night at Wembley, he built something bigger. He built a moment that proved something the world needed to remember, that fame, talent, and success mean nothing if you forget to see the people right in front of you. Emma still tears up when she talks about that night. "I watched my brother live his dream," she said in an interview years later. "But more than that, I watched Michael Jackson remember why he dreamed in the first place. That moment changed Daniel's life. But I think it changed Michael's too." The footage of that night has been viewed millions of times. But what people don't see in the video is what happened after. How Michael Jackson changed his tour protocol after that night. How he started leaving gaps in his shows, unscripted moments where he could connect with fans who needed it most. How he would scan the crowd during Man in the Mirror, looking for people who were singing not for attention, but for survival. That night at Wembley wasn't just a concert. It was a catalyst. A turning point in how Michael Jackson saw his own power. Not the power to entertain, but the power to heal. In the months that followed, Michael Jackson would reference that night in private conversations with his band members. "I used to think the show was about perfection," he told one of his dancers. "But Daniel taught me it's about connection. Real connection. The kind that doesn't need lights or choreography. Just presence." His makeup artist recalled him being quieter after that tour. More reflective. "He kept that night close to his heart," she said. "He would mention Daniel sometimes, wondering how he was doing. Wondering if that moment meant as much to Daniel as it did to him. It did. Daniel continued to attend concerts whenever he could afford it. Different artists. Different venues. But he never experienced anything like that night again. Nothing could ever match it, he admitted. Not because it was Michael Jackson, but because it was human. Pure. Unfiltered. 83,000 people were in that stadium. But only one of them couldn't see. And somehow, he saw Michael Jackson clearer than anyone else ever had. If this story moved you, share it. Let people remember that legends aren't just made. They're felt. And that night, everyone felt something they would carry with them forever.